and thank you for joining us. My name is Lucy Sacco, and this is Master Artist Class, a program designed to introduce master artists from the late 19th and early 20th centuries by offering a brief lecture on the artists' lives and their painting styles, a segment with images of each master artist's works, and lastly, we will paint our own rendition of one of the feature artist's paintings. In today's episode, we will continue our studies of Vincent van Gogh, but rather than talk about Van Gogh's family and relationships, I will speak more in depth about the painting that we will be studying today. Our painting is called Irises. It is one of a series of 4 iris paintings done by Van Gogh, and it is one of the first paintings he did at the St. Paul De Mausole asylum, a former monastery, where he spent most of his days in his last year of life. At the time, the modern world had become fascinated with the notion that life in isolation, with no contact with the outside world or stimuli, as a catalyst for artistic creativity. Friedrich Nietzsche, a German philosopher, once wrote, "Nature entraps the genius in a prison and stimulates his wish to break free to the utmost." Doing without stimuli of reality was a way for Van Gogh to turn his back on the world and a way for him to focus with devotion and determination. He once described his painting as the lightning conductor for my illness. Observing his ability to paint helped him to feel that he wasn't a madman after all. He found these irises in the asylum garden at St Remy, along with many other subjects and series. Our painting today sold in 1987 for $53.9 million, the equivalent of over $100 million today. J.PaulGettymuseum purchased irises shortly thereafter for an undisclosed amount, and that is where the painting resides. In 2017, on a trip to California, I was actually able to view the painting on display at the museum. It was a sight to behold and an absolute magnificent painting. I'll never forget it. Like other artists in France, such as Degas, Cézanne, and Monet, Van Gogh's works were influenced by the Japanese woodblock prints that he collected while staying in Paris with his brother Theo. Please view the upcoming segment of some of the scenes from the asylum in St. Remy. Notice the color and thick textures of these paintings that are so indicative of Vincent van Gogh's works. Enjoy. today our painting is going to be Irises by Vincent Van Gogh. And if you want to find a list of supplies and colors, you can go on my website, masterartist.com, and it will have all the information there. You can also get a rendering, or I'm having books of these renderings printed up. They come with a copy, and those will be available soon also. So let us begin. This painting is a very intense, time-consuming painting. So I'm going to get right to it. So this painting, we're going to start with our 3/4-inch flathead brush. And I'm getting some very light greenish yellow. And I'm just going to go around the entire background. I'm going around the entire painting. It doesn't really matter. I'm not going to go over the white iris very much, but the others I can certainly paint over them too. But I'm not going to. I'm just going to paint around them for now. Like all of Van Gogh's paintings, they are very thick, very high relief, very thick paint. I'm not putting any water into the paint, although I'll rinse my brush in water. So this painting was the first painting that Van Gogh did at the asylum, St Paul De Mausole Asylum, which was a monastery at one point. It was a former monastery. And he was happy to go there because I think he had a little bit of difficulty fitting in. He had sort of a difficult personality. And his one good friend, Paul Gauguin, and his brother, but Paul Gauguin was his one good friend, and Theo actually asked Paul Gauguin to live with him in Arles, and they did live together for a while until their altercation, and I think Van Gogh felt so badly about it. That's when he cut his ear. There's a lot of stories that go out around about it, but that is exactly what's happened. He was filled with remorse, and he would much rather not hear anything than hear what he had heard about Paul Gauguin being with the woman that he liked. So in this painting, there's very little. He's so happy to be there in peace and quiet. He didn't have to deal with anyone. He didn't have to live up to anyone's expectation. So he was having a respite, sort of. And it was good for him. I mean, as an artist, as a painter, painting and creativity takes a ton of energy. And if you're tired, or if you have emotional things going on in your life or stresses, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to get the energy to be creative. So having this isolation during the pandemic has been sort of good in a way for other artists, and certainly allows way for creativity. So now I'm going to put something called raw sienna. There are a lot of paintings with raw sienna in them too. It's like a deep gold brown color. And this ground area is very detailed. He paid close attention to all the details of this iris cluster. I have 17 colors today. A lot of them are mixed, and I will give you the recipes on my website. It's so much easier to have them mixed ahead of time. And what I do when I have to mix a color, I get these little containers. They're like little plastic containers. You can get them at a dollar store or whatever. But that's what I use a lot of times to store the extra paint. Okay, so now we've got that light color down. Now I'm going to move to a darker green, but it's still sort of a chartreuse green. So I'm going to start dabbing that in there. I'm going to do the background first. You know, I'm looking at my copy. I don't want to ignore you. Sometimes it's hard to think of things to talk about. That's one thing. But I sometimes struggle with focusing on the painting and speaking, and so finding the right word and that sort of thing. But it's still fun. I love it. I love it. So when I would work at the retirement and independent living communities, I would be helping people, like showing them how to use the brush, showing them, you know, what color to use and where. It's easier that way. And I'm sure many of you feel very intimidated by this sort of process. But I'm telling you, if you would just get a rendering, the doing of painting is so much different than the creating of the painting. So the doing of the painting is a little bit more strategic. You have to have an idea of what you want to have happen, okay? I'm here to guide you through it. The thing is I know you're thinking, I will never be able to do that. When I worked with the seniors, I'm telling you, they couldn't even hold a brush. They didn't even know how to hold the brush correctly. So I had to teach them. And they loved this class. They looked forward to it every day. And so many people would say, I can't paint. I've never been an artist. I'm a mathematician, blah, blah, blah. And then they would love this class. When are you coming back? It's always the same. It was always the same. So I wasn't intimidated at all because I could teach them. This way, virtually, I know it's a little bit more difficult because you're responsible to get your own materials, and I'm working on these iris with it's a medium blue that I pre-mixed. It's a cobalt with a little bit of light blue violet, and I mean, I'll give you the recipe for it. But it's difficult to get motivated, I think, for people because I was talking to my sister today. I was saying I have my own art that I do, and it's an installation sort of art. I do sculptures and then videos over the top and that sort of thing. The doing requires some organization. You've got to be organized about it. The doing can be lighthearted, but the preparing for it, the production of it, is very sort of, I guess, business-like, almost like you have to just do it. Just do it. Don't be afraid. Come out of your comfort zone and just try it. It will work. I promise you, I would not abandon you. I will help you through it. And as long as you're kind of watching what I'm doing, you're going to be able to do it. I mean, even in the classes that I taught before, I was doing a painting, but I was mostly helping people. Because I would have 10 people or 15 people at a time that I'd be teaching. And of course, they would miss information or whatever because they're talking or whatever. But, of course, it's like reading. It's like reading. You have to just practice, and you'll get good at it. Now, I intend to do several episodes, and, PCTV has been very generous, and it has allowed me to do these episodes for your benefit. And, you can watch it anytime you want on my website, or you can watch it on PCTV. But, it's just a matter of doing it. You might want to collect all of these master artworks. So let's talk about this white iris over here. What is going on? Why only one white iris? What does that mean? I tried to find some information about it, and I couldn't really find that much information about it. Why only one white iris? And I don't really think that Van Gogh discussed that, what it meant, with his brother, Theo. So this painting was the only painting that Van Gogh did that was, Starry Night, and this painting, they were the only ones that were exhibited before Van Gogh died. So it's very significant. It's very significant. The story is he hurt his ear, and then he was in the hospital. And his brother Theo he sent him a letter, and he said, I don't know how much longer I can do this. And Vincent thought that Theodore wasn't going to support him anymore. And that's why he thought he would just be a burden and better off, to take his own life, which is so sad. But we all know that's not true. But that's what happened. You have to really pay attention to what people say. You can't just go ahead and make assumptions about what they mean. If you don't understand, just ask. Poor Vincent. He just was really an amazing person. These paintings, so this painting, it looks very serene, very organized, and very much focused on the swirl and the growth of these irises. He was really paying attention to that. I'm going to do this. Make sure you clean your brush really, really well. So now I'm going to put like a cobalt color on a lot of these irises. They have a deeper cobalt color. So I'm going to put that on. And so there's lots of shades of blue in this, and purple in this painting. One lady I taught was 100, well, several people I taught were over 100 years old. And they honestly did not think they could do it. And they ended up doing painting in my class. And I mean, those were the people that were so enthusiastic about the class. You know, there's something to that being in isolation, though. You know, it really does allow you to get charged up for a creative burst, because it takes so much energy and courage to follow through with your creative idea. So let's go here, a little bit here. You can see exactly where this cobalt blue goes. You can see it. I mean, and don't feel like it has to be perfect. It is going to be perfectly yours, perfect from your hand, perfectly from you. It's very illustrative. That's where I'm going to fall short, because I won't have time to illustrate every single thing. Okay, I'm going to start putting this color here on these leaves from the iris. In one of the articles I read about it, it talked about how the dark irises are over here, and then the white is over here. So the dark irises are in front of a light background, and the light iris is in front of a slightly darker background. And that's a really interesting perspective. Yeah, I'm going to start with the leaves now. Okay. The leaves are several different shades of green. So here we go. I've got my tapered brush, and I am being very precise. This tapered brush really allows me to be precise. I love it. Some of these leaves are sort of like a turquoise color, the way he had them painted. Some of these have like a blue outline. The leaves are very important, by the way. They're just as important as the irises, because of the way that they're shaped, and they create a balance in this painting. Then they're different tones. It's tricky, very tricky. No one bought this painting, by the way, but I've read that it was sold over a dozen times before it was sold in 1987 for $53.9 million. And I did get to see it in real life when I went to visit my daughters in California. It was awesome. The J.PaulGettymuseum is amazing. They have such beautiful artwork there. Amazing. some of this is like a lighter turquoise. I'm going to go a little lighter here. That's a little bright. I think I'm going to add a little white to that. I had a turquoise all mixed, but I think it's too bright. These colors are a little bit more muted than that. Yeah, that's better. Very clean colors. So some of these, I just have to go ahead and paint and put them all in. I don't want this to be a painful painting. So if you feel that you want to just put the leaves the way that you want to put them, that's okay too. Some of these look like aloe vera leaves. They're so turquoisey. So there's some lighter blue leaves in the foreground. I have a little bit more blue in them. Like here. And the nice thing is, once you start doing the outlines of these leaves, it's really going to pop. Every little detail. Every brush stroke was a loaded brush. This guy. And I think that he desperately wanted to give to humanity. He wanted to make a mark. Like all artists do want to make a mark. We all do. And some of us are better teachers than artists. Some of us are okay artists, but probably better at teaching. I don't know what I am, but I enjoyed teaching. I certainly wouldn't want to live on my art. I think I'd be in the same boat as poor Vincent. Never know. There are so many lines. So the music would always take up a lot of the time while people were painting. They just painted and were relaxing while they painted. Okay. I think I have a pretty good foundation for the leaves of the irises. There's quite a good foundation there. There is another white iris over here. And what does that mean? What does that mean? I'm going to paint it. Paint it white. Now this white iris, it's not really white. Like so many whites aren't white. They are usually light colors, like a light pastel color. Like So this one is a greenish color, like the leaves. And I'm just going to make some marks of green on this particular iris. I'm going to do the white one. And so let's paint it now. Let's see what it looks like painted. Put a real thick layer down, and it should be just fine. And believe me, it is very painterly. You know, you can't draw this painting, but a lot of it is illustrative too. There are some purple, deep, deep purple colors on the irises, and I'm going to put that in now. So, and it's in very few places on these irises. Deep purple. I'm going to look very carefully where this goes. It's not everywhere. So this one, like so. It's going to make this thing pop out, just like the outline on the leaves will. See, it's just here and there. And there, most everything is outlined. He sort of put down a layer of a darker color and then painted over it. A lot of the Dutch masters, that's what they would do. They would put down a coat of raw umber, which is a deep brown. And then they would paint over the top. They never had white. They didn't have to deal with it shows up so much better on the dark brown. Believe it or not, it's so weird. I worked for a master artist as an apprentice for 3 years. And I'll tell you, that is intense. It took me 3 days to write the title of a book. Realism. And she studied the Dutch masters. That's what she liked. A little bit here, a little bit there, and before you know it, we're going to be done. I've got probably, well, we're nowhere near done, but it feels like we're well on our way. Okay, I'm going to step back. Yeah. Yeah, that's intense. I'm sure he didn't finish it in a half an hour. So, the way we're going to go about these leaves, they have an outline. And I'm going to put that on now. I'm going to put it on. It's dry paint. It's kind of sketched on there. Here I go. And it kind of shows you in what order the leaves are. In other words, some are in the foreground, some are behind that. So it helps to kind of show, even though when you're talking about perspective, things farther away, they get lighter, and things that come closer, they get more vivid. Well, in this case, with these leaves, it's the opposite. The closer up ones are more blue and light, and the more vivid ones are farther behind. And he outlined all of them. So I'm going to get going here. I'm going to just kind of go along here and outline it. I can move quickly because I have a lot of expertise in this, but I'm trying not to be sloppy. Take my time. Now some of these have like a more of a blue outline, so maybe I'll do that too. I think I'll do that too. And it's going to be very dry paint. I'm not even rinsing my brush. I'm just going to go along. I don't think he rinsed his brush either. I think he kind of just went along and did this. Somehow, as we move over toward the other side, toward this side, the right side, the outlines become more blue. And I'm not really sure what his reasoning was for that, but it all makes sense. All of it makes sense, the way he did it. I read a letter from Theo to Vincent about this painting when it was showing at a salon in Paris. A salon is like an exhibition that the Impressionists wanted to put on. Well, it doesn't have to be Impressionist, but it was around that time. That's what they called exhibitions, a salon. You have to step back all the time because I want it to show up, and it looks like it's a little too deep in some of these spots. So I have to kind of bring it out again, touch it up again. There we go. Isn't it wonderful? It's spring. Oh my gosh, it's so gorgeous outside. I couldn't believe it when I looked at my phone and it said it was 45 degrees. And I said, oh, I love it. I love spring so much. In the wintertime, it's sort of like an incubation period. I do all of my planning and all of my creative thoughts. I kind of think about things in the winter and say, oh, what am I going to do in the spring? And it's wonderful. Wonderful to be able to come outside and breathe and see the beautiful plants and everything coming to life. Okay, the irises look a little bit sloppy, you know. Like, I apologize for that, but I'm going to fix it. Some of them have to be illustrated a little bit, and I'm going to do that. I have a smaller brush that I intend to use. I usually would never go really detailed at the classes that I taught because it's just too intense. It's too difficult for people. But now I'm going to do it just for the sake of having a successful painting. And if you want to, you can too. I'm just going to be a little bit careful about my outlines. And this is something that most people who are painters, they wouldn't do this. This is not what they do. And I'm sure Vincent wasn't doing it either. He probably had several layers, and he was very careful with his brush strokes and very conscious. I'm certain he wasn't talking. I think I'm becoming quite a chatterbox. I'm not, well, only recently I've become familiar with monologues, the online dating thing. I'm sort of I am a monologue. Anyway, I'm sorry. It's just funny. Look at these beautiful irises. They must have been so comforting to him, you know, being in the asylum. Okay, I'm going to try to do this a little bit more quickly, and then I'm going to, you know, put in some highlights, because that's really where you're going to start seeing these irises pop the most, is from the highlights. A very, very light white or light blue. These irises, like, think about how you would paint an iris. I mean, really, honestly and truly. Like, if you sat down and decided, oh, I'm going to paint an iris, how would your iris look? It might be like a little bubble, a little couple of petals here, and a stem down. None of these are straight lines. Zero straight lines. And I'm sure he had a lot more paint on his brush too. I'm certain of it. Loaded brush. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to my tapered brush. I'm going to start putting in some white because it's more precise. It's bigger, but it's more precise because it's angled and it's absolutely narrow. I'm going to get a little bit more white here. Okay. All right, now we're going to do some of the centers of these irises. And some of them are going to have like a little bit of yellow in there too, which will make a difference. It'll make a huge difference. This painting was so cool. I had about 20 pictures of it. I think I get a little carried away with these sort of things. I couldn't help myself. It was so amazing. These bearded irises, oh, so gorgeous. I don't blame you if you don't order a rendering for this painting, but I think you'd have a lot of fun painting it. And I think it will be a real winner, regardless of how well you think it is. Your family will love it. I'm putting a big glob of yellow on here because I really want it to show up. And it shows where the center of these irises are on a lot of these. And don't like muddy it up. Just put the dot there and let it be thick. Let it be thick because that's what he had. He had very thick paint. But you don't want to like have like a big blob or something, but that's what he had, dots and dashes. Dabs and dashes. There's some flowers back here in the background. I'm going to put those in there too. Some sunny flowers back here that are also outlined. And there's a darker green we're going to use back here. And then, of course, we've got the ground here. There are thousands of brush strokes in this ground right here. So many thousands of brush strokes, I'm telling you. So detailed, the sky. But I think he really enjoyed having the privacy and the time to rest there at the asylum. Okay. So, let me see. A couple more spots of yellow. I'm putting a big glob there because I want it to show up. They kind of have little wings. Trying not to make a brush mark. I'm trying just to put a dollop of, a tiny dot of paint. Okay, so some of these, like the things that hold the bud, the leaves, I don't know what they're called. They must be leaves. But they're holding the bud, you know, sort of snug. I'm looking forward to having a flower garden this summer. I'll have my own. I am so looking forward to that. You hear me pounding that down on the bowl. on the bottom of the bowl because I want it to be completely clean. It's important to have clean colors. I've said it 1,000 times before. And, well, not with you, but with my other classes too. So now there's some darker parts that you can see through that light chartreuse green. And I'm going to put some dabs and dashes back here with that darker color. It looks as though that he definitely used the method of the Dutch masters by putting a darker undercoat underneath everything over here and a lighter undercoat under everything with a dark foreground. Very interesting. And you know, he really, this is a well thought out painting. It's not like he just went, oh, I'm going to go paint some irises. There are different parts of this painting that had to be thought out ahead of time. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the effect that it has on you. It wouldn't show up as well. Okay, there's a couple of light little irises in the background here. I'm going to paint those. They're this color, this light violet, blue violet. Right here. They're kind of just in the background here. Just kind of vague petals and whatnot. Okay, you know, we really are coming down to the home stretch here. Now I have some burnt sienna. And there are lots and lots of dabs and dashes of that. So here I go. The darker parts of the rendering are that raw, burnt sienna. Did I say raw? Well, it's burnt sienna. Burnt sienna, the reddish brown that I taught you how to mix. And you probably still have some of that left from the other paintings. But now you know how to store it. Just go to the dollar store and get some little containers. It'll be good for your pocketbook. You won't be wasting paint. And you'll feel better about it because you'll have it on hand. I like this red part down here. You know, he's a post-impressionist artist, okay? He's post-impressionist. And that means he learned a lot of his colors and techniques from his colleagues in Paris. You know, Cézanne and Degas and all. Well, Degas didn't really want to be known as an impressionist, but he was. He used it too. He used the impressionist sort of thinking in some of his paintings too. But yeah, so we're coming down to the home stretch. I'm going to outline our flowers with some raw sienna up here, a little bit of raw sienna, some of them. So I'm just going to dab around the outside here. Kind of turn my brush. Look at how I'm turning my brush like this. I'm just got it between my thumb and my index finger and I'm turning it. Okay, I'm not moving the paper, but I mean, if you wanted to, if you held on to your paper, you could move it. But right now I'm just turning the brush in my fingers. And that's the way we go around these little yellow flowers. You know, I would love to have some music. It feels like something's missing. I'm just not sure how to do that right now because my phone kind of would interfere with my microphone. But I think it would be great to have music too. We'll see. I love it. Well, that is coming along, don't you think? Now, some of this raw sienna, I'm going to take some light yellow and raw sienna, mix that together, and then I'm going to just dab here. Dab, dab, dab. I'm not even putting a fraction of the brush strokes in here, but, you know, I think it looks pretty good for what we have. Don't leave any white on this painting. Now, when you're done, I don't want to see any paper. Oh, which brings me to the last painting. I said that it was on Arches paper. Well, that's a brand name. I just want you to know it's Strathmore. But it's a very high quality watercolor paper. A lot of people call watercolor paper of this nature Arches. Just artists, they just do, because that's what we know. But this is a Strathmore paper, and I have it printed professionally on it. And it's an excellent paper. Excelente. Love it. Don't leave any white spots. Even if you just take and fill it with green or purple or whatever you got. You know, you might want to pay attention to what's on the copy. There should be no white, no unpainted area. Geez, you know, I think we're finished. I think we are. It's beautiful. I love mine. I hope you join me. You can go on my website, masterartistclass.com, and you can join me in this painting. You can take your time, you can rewind it, you can do whatever you like. I want to thank you for joining me today. I enjoyed myself, and I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Thank you very much, and have a good day, and so long.